I'm Jonathan, and this is your introduction for 7 shapes from 4 shapes. So you want to drink the Kool-Aid of 7 shapes. So you'll be singing from either the Christian Harmony or the new Harp of Columbia. So this video should give you a short introduction on how to understand 7 shapes from 4 shapes. A few things to note. Singing 7 shapes from 4 shapes is not really very difficult. There's a few shapes in common, so hopefully that will help you out a little bit. If you don't have a Christian Harmony or New Harp of Columbia, don't worry. You can get one either online or as singing, but in the meantime, there are a few things available online, either at the Bremen Sacred Heart website. There's a full Christian Harmony on there. You can download specific pages. I'll put a link down below. As well as the New Harp of Columbia is on IMSLP online. It's the older edition, so not the restored edition, but still pretty useful, linked below. So, get a pen and paper, turn your volume up, get your Kool-Aid, and get ready to sing 7 shapes. The book you'll most likely use at most Christian Harmony singings across the U.S. and outside of the U.S., and especially at Camp Doremi, will be the 2010 edition, the newest edition of the Christian Harmony. Just a quick background on how a number of these editions kind of came together, were edited and whatnot, because you may see one of these books at some point, and certainly were used by most Christian Harmony singers up until fairly recently. So many people in North Carolina, South Carolina, and in parts of Georgia and Alabama and elsewhere, for a long time used the Carolina book, or sometimes called the Walker book, which was the original Christian Harmony from 1866 and was reprinted in 1873 and 1901. There was another reprint done in 1979 and in 1994. And William Walker, the publisher of the Christian Harmony, devised his own set of 7 shapes. Sometimes we joke and call the Walker shapes the Lucky Charm shapes.
Rainbow of marshmallow surprises. Hearts, stars, moons, clovers, diamonds, and horseshoes.
The Christian Harmony had a number of songs from the Southern Harmony and some older tunes like those in the Sacred Heart, but he also added some by folks like Bradbury, Hastings, and sort of the Lowell Mason style composers in a more or less a standard church harmony style. It's clear from Walker's introduction that he was in favor of switching from the 4-shape system to the 7-shape system, saying, "To those who are in favor of 4-note singing and think it is the best way, we would remark that we were for many years opposed to any other, delivered many lectures on the subject, and were not convinced of our error till we taught our first normal school. There we saw clearly that, as we had 7 distinct sounds in the scale, we needed and must have, to be consistent, 7 names. We tried many names, but finally agreed on the Italian as the most euphonious. During the discussion, the question was asked, would any parents having 7 children ever think of calling them only by 4 names?" I personally think Walker was just trying to sell a book. In 2015, the Folk Heritage Edition reprint of the Christian Harmony was completed and is mainly used in singings in Western North Carolina, with some occasional singing schools that have taken place since its publication. With the 2010 edition of the Christian Harmony singings have gained more popularity across the US, UK, Germany, Ireland, and beyond, with some singings actually happening in Japan. In 1958, the Alabama book, or the Decent Paris revision, came out, and in 2002 was reprinted. The Alabama book contained a lot of more gospel songs, as well as a number of the older songs from the Christian Harmony. But this time, there were contributions by folks like O.A. Paris, G.S. Doss, J.D. Wall, Art Deason, John Hocutt, and Elmer Kitchens. Many songs that you may be familiar with even if you are not a Christian Harmony singer, like Farther Along and Not Made with Hands, also show up in this book. One disadvantage of the Alabama book was that it was handwritten, and the shape notes were handwritten in the Aiken system, but were really hard to read in many cases. So, with a shortage of books and with this problem, this is when the 2010 edition kind of came to be. An important thing to note when singing from the Christian harmony or the new harp as a sacred harp singer is that tune names may differ, or tunes and tune names may not match up in the same way. I've created you a handy spreadsheet for finding similar tunes between the three books, actually, so hopefully that will be useful. Some songs may also have subtle differences in text and harmony. So here's an example of Bellevue from the Sacred Harp, the familiar How Firm a Foundation tune, with the same song that's in the Christian harmony called How Firm a Foundation, and then it's called Protection in the new Harp of Columbia. So those are some distinctions that are worth noting. So here's you a handy chart to show you some differences between the Aiken shapes, the swan shapes, and the four-note fa sol la system. But I'm not going to include the Walker system here since we're not going to be concentrating on that. But here you see fa sol la, mi, which is our familiar four-note scale, and below it you have the Doremi scale with the corresponding Aiken and swan shapes. Now this is not really that difficult to figure out. So you'll see that fa sol la in the second fa, sol, and la in the four-note system is the same fa sol la in the seven-shape system. So you've got those three shapes going for you right there. But then you have to learn the do, re, mi, and of course the mi is the third note of the scale, which is the same as the seventh note of the scale, which is C, which is different here. But at least the syllables are the same, even though the placement of the mi is a little bit different. Now sometimes folks will ask about the difference between C and T. I personally sing T, I always have, and learned that in music school, but many folks also sing C. The rudiments in all three books teach C instead of T, but if T works for you, it's no problem. So let's look at a couple of examples from the Christian harmony. First we'll look at an interval exercise, and I have the shapes written with the syllables down below. I also put in the syllables for the exercise just to help you out, and I would suggest that when you get your first Christian harmony, or if you already have one, to either make a copy or write in the book in pencil, and you can write DRMFSLS, or you can write, I guess, C for the seventh note, to kind of help you along if you're a little bit slow at getting to the seven shapes from the four shapes. There's nothing wrong with writing that in your book as a way to study. So let's work on this example. Do, do, re, mi, do, mi, fa, do, fa, sol, do, sol, la, do, la, si, do, si, do, do, si, do, la, do, sol, do, fa, do, mi, do, re, do, do, sol, mi. Now let's sing the tune Dundee. First, let's go through just the melody singing the shapes, and then I'll play a recording, which I believe has the first and third verses with the shapes at the beginning. So we'll go through that and try to practice that. Dundee is in this Christian harmony and in the new harp, and because it's all in half notes, should be pretty easy to get. You'll also notice in the tenor line there is a natural fa, and just like a sharp fa in sacred harp singing, it's a fi. Do, do, mi, fa, sol, do, re, mi, fa, mi, re, do, do, si, do, sol, do, si, la, sol, sol, fi, sol, mi, re, do, si, do. Leading from the Christian harmony or the new Harp of Columbia is really similar to sacred harp style leading. Usually in 4/4 songs, you will lead in patterns of 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. But at some Christian harmony singings, you also can lead in 4 up and down, just like sacred harp singings. 3, sometimes you'll see as down, down, across, up, down, across, up, instead of maybe the more familiar down, down, up. Really, either's okay. And any of the singings you go to, usually, whatever you do, just let the class know what you're doing and you'll have no problem. Now for the new Harp of Columbia, which can get a little bit confusing because it's called old harp singing or singing, going to an old harp singing, but the songbook is called the new Harp of Columbia. Well, there's a couple of precedents for this. So the Harp of Columbia was the original book published in 1848 by M.L. and W.H. Swan in Knoxville, Tennessee. The Harp of Columbia is mainly used in East Tennessee with a few singings here and there, but mostly it's in sort of the mountain region there. But in 1867, M.L. Swan decided to update the book, and that's when it became the new Harp of Columbia. He removed a bunch of songs and replaced them with some newer songs. Some were kind of in that more conventional church harmony, like in the Christian harmony. There are also a lot of kind of odd tunes in the new Harp of Columbia, some that he supposedly wrote, that M.L. Swan supposedly wrote, which are, some of them are very easy to sing, and some are a little bit difficult to sing. And some of the songs that were taken out from the Harp of Columbia have been restored in the new edition. Actually, all of them have been restored in the new edition from 2001, and a couple of them actually have some harmony problems that were just copied over from old books, like the Knoxville harmony that predated the Harp of Columbia. So the song Star in the East, which you may be familiar with, whether a Christian harmony singer or a sacred harp singer that you just may have heard somewhere, the harmony, the melody is recognizable, but when you put the harmony with it, all 4 parts, it gets a bit hairy there. It's not quite, yeah. Anyway, there's some interesting things in this book. But however, so if you find yourself with a 1978 reprint from Tennessee, the Tennesseana edition, or if you have a 2001 reprint, that will be the new Harp of Columbia, but only the 2001 reprint has the restored songs from the original Harp of Columbia in the back. We often call these the songs from the appendix, or we'll put an A beside them to know that they're from the back. And some of those songs are sung. There's also a few sets of extra words, text for songs in the back, and a little bit more about old harp singing in general. So most old harp singings are not all day. They are about 2 hours long. The annual singings are about 2 hours long, although more recently, the Wares Valley Singing Convention was formed to combine a local singing with the Hedrick Chapel singing, which was an all-day singing, to create a convention. So there are some all-day singings. Old harp singings do form themselves in squares, just like Sacred Harp and Christian Harmony singings, although sometimes the layout can be a little bit different for those familiar with Sacred Harp singing. The parts may not be in quite the same order, and this has some history in the shapes of the different churches, how they were held, and whatnot. And you'll also notice, if you attend an old harp singing in East Tennessee, that many of the songs will be pitched with a pitch pipe, which is a little different, but there certainly is a history of that. There are some song differences, like I mentioned with the Christian Harmony and Sacred Harp, with varying tune names. So you'll see that here with New Britain from the Sacred Harp, and Middleton, which has a different set of words in the New Harp, but of course everyone probably knows the text to Amazing Grace, and it's written in the back as well. Some of the harmony in some of these similar tunes are also different, but you'll use that comparison chart for the Sacred Harp, Christian Harmony, and New Harp to kind of see the familiar tunes. So let's look at the shape system. It's really distinct, so hopefully not too difficult to remember. Like I said, the Fa, Sol, La, the 4, 5, and 6 are the same shapes. And let's practice MEAR. Let's practice MEAR singing the shapes on just the tenor, and then I'll play a recording of everyone at an old harp singing, and you can sing along. Do, do, sol, sol, mi, mi, do, re, mi, do, sol, fa, sol, sol, la, sol, sol, do, fa, mi, re, do, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, do. 14. So I hope this guide has been useful for you. It's just a beginning, doesn't have everything, but hopefully you'll get to a singing or to Camp Doremi and learn a little bit more. That's good Kool-Aid.